Hey, and welcome to Glaring Admissions. I'm your host, Nick, and this is a show about watching and discussing iconic, seminal movies that either myself or my co-host Raekwon have never seen before. On today's episode, we're talking about the 1996 movie Independence Day, directed by Roland Emmerich and starring Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, and like a lot of other people because this is it's an ensemble movie.
My fellow Americans,
perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to exist. Should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday.
About bloody time.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
All right, so before we dive into things, Raekwon, I do want to throw one thing to our audience, which is if you guys have seen this movie before and you have like a really good, memorable story attributed to it, we'd love to hear it in the comments. And if you haven't seen the movie before and it's, a glaring admission for you, maybe tell us about that in the comments too while you're at it, or drop a recommendation for a movie you want to see us cover in the future.
I guess we should explain the movie, like what the movie is about.
No, I think everybody knows, like by now it's Independence Day, right? Like aliens attack the planet. Everyone needs to band together to fight them. The end.
All right.
So yeah. Okay, now, Raekwon, why the hell did you make me watch this?
What do you mean? You don't like Independence Day?
Okay, so for the sake of the title of the video, which is going to be Should We Celebrate Independence Day? Because, obviously, it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it. Actually, I was telling you, I watched this movie twice in preparation for this, and I went from really enjoying it the first time I watched it to being like massively indifferent towards it the second time, save for some beats that I was like, no, that's damn fine filmmaking.
When you told me after you'd seen it for the first time that you didn't
for what it's
hate
worth,
it,
I'm the one who hadn't seen this before. Raekwon has seen this. Yeah.
Yes. You described it as just like a fun disaster movie, which it is, but like, I remember watching it and I was like, oh, wow, this isn't good. Like this, I didn't remember this movie being bad. And this is like I love Will Smith. When we were deciding on an episode, I said, I'll take any excuse to gush over Will Smith. Yeah. But I hadn't seen this movie in years and it's not very good. I didn't know that it was bad. Like I remember watching it. It came out in 96. I was born in 97. So I probably saw it when I was super young and then like rewatched it as a teenager or something. And after rewatching it, I don't think I could consider it a good blockbuster. It just is one.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I see where you're coming from with it. And I do agree, like on paper, this movie is so stupid. And the more, because like I watched, for context, I watched this movie twice, the first time being on Tuesday after having like one of the worst days in modern memory for me because I had to put my fucking dog down and I was depressed. I was in a bad mood and I sat down and I watched it. And I was telling you before we hit record, that's probably why I liked the movie. It's just, I just really needed a win that day. And hey, that's a compliment. The movie was a win. But, like that second screening I watched last night where I was just like sitting through it. And I'm like, oh yeah, none of this actually makes sense. Like for reference, a huge point of this movie hinges on their inability to break the alien shields. Anytime they shoot at it bounces right off or whatever. It was pretty funny when they fired a missile at one of like the alien shuttles and it just bounces like a basketball like away. But what the hell, how does that make sense if the enemy has like these, these shields or whatever, and one of their ships is in Area 51? How were they able to work on the ship and stuff if the shield was still active? Like, I think they talk about how the ship didn't have power for a long time, and then it recently regained it because the mothership was nearby or something other. But it's just confusing because it implies that they knew how to turn the ship off, but then Jeff Goldblum had to give the ship a virus so that he could turn the shield off.
Also, since we're talking about Area 51.
Yeah, we're just getting into it.
The fact that the Secretary of Defense withholds the information that aliens do indeed exist and Area 51 does exist. He doesn't mention it when there is clearly an alien invasion happening.
Yeah.
They wait until it takes out, until all the people are dead, until they start taking cities out. And then he's like, oh, well, Mr. President. That's not, what does he say? He's like, that's not exactly accurate. It's like,
yeah,
bro,
no, but it also he wasn't even going to bring it up until Judd Hirsch started yelling at him.
Yeah, right.
We were totally unprepared for this.
Don't give me unprepared.
Come on, Julius.
It was what, in the 50s, whatever. You had that spaceship.
Which, fair enough. If Judd Hirsch is yelling at you about something, dude, just talk. Just talk.
Yeah, just tell the truth. He's going to get it out of you one way or the other.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where the more you think about it, nothing adds up. And that isn't even something I hold against the movie for what it's worth. I kind of am cool with that. Like, for example, Red Letter Media did a video on this several years ago. And I watched half of it and I was kind of like, okay, the thing is, I agree with everything they said in the video, that it's a bad movie, that its screenplay makes no sense, that it's a dumb movie.
Uh-huh.
I don't care about that though. What I care about is that the stuff that really should matter, like the pacing, which outside of the fact that the movie is pretty clever for dividing its story into 3 50-minute segments, each representing an act of the story, is all over the place. Like, take the first act, for instance, where we basically just meet the characters and have their arcs set up, but we don't also have that much interesting going on outside of that, and nothing big happens until 50 minutes in when everything goes to shit. Or also the characters and their performances, which are, for lack of a better term, kind of all over the place and generic. You brought up a really good point where you said that Will Smith doesn't turn up for the first section of the movie, really. And the first time I watched the movie, I was actually surprised by that. And I thought it was ballsy. Because imagine having your tentpole name actor for this movie. Granted, Will Smith, this is the movie. This and Bad Boys made him into Will Smith, the movie star. But imagine your main actor not showing up for 20 minutes of technically his movie.
Yeah.
Kind of wild,
And it could have been because there were so many cooks in the kitchen. There were so many big name actors. Well, even regardless of their names, there were so many characters in this that were just kind of there, but they were there so often that you kind of believe that they had at least a bigger, that they would mean more to the story. But at the end of the day, who really, push the plot forward? It was Will Smith's character, Jeff Goldblum, and Randy Quaid. But at the very end, but it wasn't. But even Randy Quaid wasn't really one of those, because it was just such a. They were trying to build up his payoff from the beginning, of him being oh, he's a drunk fucking veteran pilot. He can't do shit right, and of course he ends up saving the day.
I think it was one of those things where there was so much going on. And I don't know why, but this movie went out of its way to cram every 50s sci-fi sort of B movie trope in there. Like you said, there's the pilot who's an alcoholic who needs to redeem himself. There's the president who hasn't had his chance in the sun yet. He hasn't really proven his worth as a president yet. There's Will Smith, the cocky fighter pilot who secretly wants to be an astronaut and wants to marry his stripper girlfriend.
Yeah.
And it's oh, wait, all of these are just cliches.
The fact that Will Smith's, his girlfriend, this is Vivica Fox, by the way, and she's a stripper, not I saw that someone commented on the Red Letter Media video you were talking about where they reviewed this, and they're his girlfriend is a stripper because he's in the military, and it's just, kind of,
I was going to say, is that a trope or something, or a stereotype?
Yeah, it is that,
okay.
they, whatever. But, and I kind of got that, but the thing was like, she really could have just been introduced in the beginning and gone for the rest of the movie, because even though it seems like she does something sort of significant by like saving the president's wife,
already dying wife,
she ends up dying anyway, and then and because she has to have this like heroic moment or whatever, we do get that cringy dog scene because
I like that.
To it? Why you like that dog scene?
Okay.
Why did you like that?
Once again, I need to get like a card I can play, like a physical card. I put my fucking dog down the morning I watched this movie, so I was hooting and I was clapping for that dog. I was like, this is cinema. You know what? Cinema. Marty's back.
Yeah, Marty has never left.
He's actually on my couch right now.
He's hanging out.
Yeah. For everyone watching and listening, the reason we're shooting remotely is because of the heat wave. We just figured 3 sweaty dudes filming on a couch would have been too much. Marty's, he's not sharing. That and my central air broke this week. But no, I liked the dog thing because I was like, you know what? It's the movie is just for one moment in time. It is just fan service, and it isn't good. I don't think it's particularly good. I'm sorry to the people who voted for this. I feel like a dick kind of for being like, no, I fucking think this movie isn't great. But I don't know. Sometimes you just need to watch a movie, right? Is it that crazy to say like, oh, Roland Emmerich didn't make a great movie in Independence Day, but he made a really fun blockbuster, you know? And stuff like that explosion sequence, the iconic like blowing up the White House, New York, you know, all that. That was cool. It was fun to watch. Again, the second you start paying attention to it, it doesn't make sense. Like the way they shot it kind of reminded me of like the scene in Terminator 2 when they blow up Los Angeles in Sarah's dream. And that was cool and it was well made. And sure, some of the effects looked a little wonky. For some reason, I kept feeling like they slowed down footage like in post and it just came off as like jerky and stuff. But okay, whatever. The explosion is fine. But it can't decide whether or not it's happening in real time or slow motion. Did you notice that?
Yeah, because I was going to ask if you meant when like the, you know, after the laser or whatever, and you get the aftershock or whatever you want to call it of the, you know, the cars getting thrown into the air and like flipping, and that was in slow motion a lot of the time, and then there were other times it was just full speed, like, and it looks like it's happening super quick. But and that's fine. Like you can switch between high speed and slow motion in like within the confines of presenting it. Like compositionally, you can do that. That's fine. But my thing was no. The aftershock itself was moving in slow motion. The explosions themselves were in slow motion. And then you'd see like people like Vivica Fox, right? That's her name. She's running at full fucking speed. And then the explosion is just trudging along behind her. Yeah. And then you cut to like stuff like Air Force One taking off, where Vivica Fox outran a fucking explosion, but the same or a similar explosion was like enough to almost kill Air Force One while it was taking off. That stood out to me and I was just like, whoa. So did you notice that on the second watch, or did you have that? I did. I only picked that up last night. I picked up on some other stuff, and this is complimentary. I originally, this was going to be like, not a critique, but something I noticed. But I noticed this movie really likes the first Star Wars, like a stupid amount. Like this movie is obsessed with A New Hope. I'm just saying it. First shot of the movie, we open on the moon and, you know, we're trudging up the moon, which is really cool. I think there's something really neat about that because like you think of the real world space program and our highest achievement arguably is landing on the moon, right? Yeah. It probably isn't, but like visually, there's nothing more visually stunning than we sent a man to the moon. And then the first shot of the movie is like an alien ship just coasting over the moon in a direct homage to the first shot of Star Wars Episode 4. Then some of the special effects shots were, this was something I wanted to talk to you about. A lot of the fighter shots, like the fighter plane stuff, was really slow. Did you notice that? It was very
it wasn't particularly dramatic by modern standards.
No, not really. I mean, what do you mean by that?
I just mean that, like, the way the ships moved, the camera placement, it was very, we put a camera here and then we had the CG model of the plane go from left to right. Like, it felt very weightless and maybe keyframed or just punched in, you know? And something about that, originally I was going to be like, you know what? It was 1996. What were they going to do? But there's two problems with that. One, well, actually, there's one problem with that. One, the Star Wars special editions came out a year later. And for better or for worse, one of the big changes they made to it was the inclusion of like new CGI models for some of the planes during the Death Star sequence, which the finale to Independence Day directly recalls with like, everyone's in the base. Oh, they're coming up on the target. They're firing their weapon.
We're running out of missiles, sir. We're just not causing enough damage. It's settling directly over us.
So that really called to attention how much better the sense of weight and inertia in the special edition was to Independence Day, because they are basically the same scene already. And then I pulled back a little bit and I was actually okay with it, because I was like, you know what? It's obvious that Roland Emmerich is trying to evoke Star Wars. And I thought about the original release of A New Hope from 1977. And yeah, some of those X-Wing shots look very similar to what Roland Emmerich was doing in Independence Day.
Oh no, you did not shoot that green shit at me.
So for better or for worse, man, like Independence Day is weirdly inspired by Star Wars.
I was going to ask if you thought that do you think that he was trying to like make something that was resembling that, like a sci-fi, I don't even know what this movie would be.
This is whatever. The disaster movie, sci-fi.
Sci-fi disaster movie. Like, do you think he was trying to create his own universe with this movie, or was it just I
don't even know, because like I think he was just like heavily influenced by those things. I could be wrong, right? But like I don't know enough about Roland Emmerich to make an educated guess. The only thing I know about him is that he's German and he's gay. That literally, and he directed 2012 at some point, and Godzilla, and White House Down. Like, that is about my knowledge of Roland Emmerich movies and his career. So I can't speak definitively, but I mean, he was obviously somewhat influenced by Star. You don't accidentally do the opening shot to A New Hope, you know? For what it's worth, like, I do see why so many people enjoyed this movie. This probably was a blast to see in theaters.
Yeah. In 1996, you go to see this new Will Smith movie just dropped. We were talking about it before. I think that Men in Black came out the year after. And Bad Boys came out, I think, in 97
95.
to 95. So this was after Bad Boys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was...
people do say, like you mentioned earlier, that this and Bad Boys kind of made him into a movie star, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the same thing. And people would put that on the list of, like, you know, Will Smith movies, the classic ones. And I told you that I was excited to see this because this is like one of my favorite Will Smith movies and this and that. And then you watch it and this doesn't even seem like a Will Smith movie. Like, I think it just really seems like he's in it, and not like, oh, he's just in it and that's it. But there's just too many characters for me. Like, I think I already said this, but there's so many characters that whose story are we watching? Like, here.
So first off, if you have more to that thought, like, please keep going. But otherwise, I can actually answer that for you.
I mean, that was my main, like, gripe with it. Watching it was like, I don't feel like we're watching Will Smith and his family's story. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's a long movie. So
yeah,
at first, it kind of seems like this is like the presidents and Jeff Goldblum. But for the president and Jeff Goldblum, they're like kind of, their lives are a little connected. They had known each other from their MIT days. And I think you could sell that too, even though it's not like sexy, like you don't have like a Will Smith to lead the movie. But even if Will Smith was in it,
man, hey, in our first episode, I said that I understand the appeal of Jeff Goldblum from watching Jurassic Park, and I stand by that to this day. So fuck you.
So you see it, you get the appeal even more with this movie.
I loved Jeff Goldblum in this movie, mainly because he's just like a weirdo nerd comm guy. And like, you know, game recognizes game. I don't know.
I liked his character in this movie too.
Yeah.
They actually gave him the screen time to show a little bit of depth in the character.
Yeah, him and Bill Pullman were the only ones with depth.
Yeah, like because they actually show what their motivations are and why they behave or a certain way or whatever. But one of the things with Jeff Goldblum's character was like he is divorced and still very much in love with his ex-wife. And that is something. And we see that and see that relationship grow. And then with the president, I'm going to sneeze.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't you fucking just sneeze, man. Let it out.
I felt it, but nothing happened.
Actually, I was literally about to keep egging you on not to sneeze. And then I realized, wait, if he actually covers his nose, like squeezes his nose to not sneeze, he could blow his sinuses in the air. And I was like, stop kidding about it.
It was so hot. Yeah. I slept with the fan on last night and I'm a little congested.
Hey man, it happens to the best of us.
Okay.
Yeah. There's your trivia for everyone watching or listening. If you're gonna sneeze, just sneeze. Don't cover your nose because you can seriously damage your sinuses and like need to go to the emergency room if you just like cover your nose and sneeze anyway.
Never hold in a good sneeze. It feels good to sneeze.
Exactly. Unless you're in a quiet place, just fucking sneeze.
Damn, what do you think people do in a quiet place when they have to sneeze?
Dude, you don't see it. All of the deleted scenes, they're just inhaling boxes of Claritin D. It's like
everybody's super healthy.
Everyone is super healthy and super hopped up on Sudafed. So to take it back a step, I do want to say, so the movie doesn't have a main character. And that's by design. Like, it's what we call an ensemble movie. It's really about the group of people and, you know, stuff like that. And that's fine. And whatever, it kind of speaks to something that I think this movie tried to do, which is try to appeal to every American and be a especially 4-quadrant movie. So whatever, I think it has like mixed success doing that personally, but I do think it works well enough that like, okay, this is what it is. This is fine, you know? As for what a 4-quadrant movie is, Raekwon, great question, by the way. I saw it in your eyes. There was a twinkle that went. Yeah. Well, I saw a twinkle in your eye and I was like, yeah, he doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I was going to use context clues.
Yeah, I thought of not putting you on the spot, but I think this is funnier. No, a 4-quadrant movie is basically a movie that's divided into 4 major demographics. You have your kids, your teenagers to adults, your, you know, older adults or whatever, and then your old audience, for example. Or it might be like action, romance, comedy, and this thing. Basically, you divide a movie into 4 audiences. And Independence Day is like one of the most 4-quadrant things I've seen in a while, because we have a little bit of romance with Will Smith and Vivica Fox. We have a bit of a adult coming of age realization story with Jeff Goldblum. We have a badass military movie in there. And we also have a comedy because this movie loves to tell jokes to middling success.
Hold me.
From the ground.
Hey, pay attention.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. Just a little anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass, that's all.
When you get your chance.
And hey, if that's the movie they want to make, that's the movie they want to make. I think it's a little cliche at points, and I'm a person who loves cliches, but I'm of the belief that if you tap into a cliche, you need to have a good reason for it. Whether it's to skip on needing to characterize your characters or something, or, you know, to help the movie have a faster pace. Like, oh, instead of establishing all the minutia about Jeff Goldblum, we'll just have him be a bit cliche. So we know, the audience knows him already.
Yeah.
And I don't think it did a particularly good job of that. For what it's worth, I do have a theory for why this movie is so strange at points. And by strange, I mean like so cartoonishly American. Mm-hmm. Other than the fact that it's called Independence Day. Obviously, like, I think being cartoonishly American kind of lends itself to the title. No, it's actually because it was written by Roland Emmerich and another guy. And like I said earlier, Roland Emmerich is German. So, you know, it might just be a bit of a Paul Verhoeven thing where like Paul Verhoeven's take on America is hyper elevated and really big and cartoony also. Because, you know, he is not from America and he has the kind of stereotypical view of America. Mm-hmm. I think Roland Emmerich does too on some level, maybe.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I never thought about it that way because we're complaining, or at least I was, about the stereotypes associated with all the characters. Just be like, okay, sure. Well, you get them, like you get what they're about because they're, you know, the classic stereotype for these types of people. But that explains so much why, you know, it would be a thing that the something that has to be mentioned, which it wasn't really necessary for the story for Will Smith's fiance to be a stripper, because I didn't even think about it until I watched the full video, the Red Letter Media review, and they said something about how the only reason we find out that his fiance is a stripper is just for that exchange that she has with the first lady.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a dancer.
Ballet?
No. Exotic.
Oh. Sorry.
Don't be. I'm not. It's good money.
It's like, okay, cool. Like, I guess we got that. Like, they respect each other now, guys. Like, yeah. What the fuck? Well, who cares?
I had a lot to say about that because one, that was the moment I realized you couldn't make Independence Day anymore. I know like people always say like, oh, you can't make this movie anymore because woke or whatever. But like, no, like you actually cannot make Independence Day anymore, or you cannot set Independence Day in 2024 because we are so divided politically that Vivica Fox would have spat in the face of the first lady for being on like the different party. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or like the vice president, the first lady would have said something like, oh, you're a lib working as a stripper or something like buck wild, because that's just like what modern politics is. Mm-hmm. But the 90s were just naive enough still to where it's like, oh, I didn't say anything. I voted for the other guy. And it's like, oh, that's a cute character beat, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I appreciated that. Also, that goes back to like the whole 4-quadrant thing I was talking about. You got to appeal to everybody, Raekwon. You know, we have enough classy, upscale white people, so we gotta appeal to minorities and people who work as strippers. And because it's the 90s and we just like watering things down into like this syrupy mess of conglomerates, we're just going to combine those 2 quadrants together.
Yeah,
because there's definitely nothing wrong with that.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
This movie was great.
I got to put like a giant /S because nobody can read sarcasm anymore.
One of the, I don't know. I truthfully didn't have any issue with how the invasion was happening. I think that's something that a lot of people complain about for this movie, at least like the other reviews that I'd seen, where if you just shut your brain off and accept that this is like a dumb blockbuster, like not dumb. I mean, this movie is dumb, but like, it's just entertainment.
How about we just use more specific words?
Okay. Entertainment. It's not like supposed to be, you know, super smart.
It's not Citizen Kane. Like,
it's not. So, but I didn't take any issue with the actual invasion because pretty much across the board, something that people had issue with was like, oh, how did they know to hit all the major cities? It's like, I don't know, the most densely populated areas. And then why are they attacking in like, it takes days for them to finish the invasion.
Yeah, or why do they need to attack at once?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
And It is what it is. It's a fucking alien invasion. We're not on their time, like on their timing.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I kind of did take issue with was like how they found out the plan.
Yep.
There's a scene when Will Smith brings back the alien that he captured and punched in the face and delivers one of the worst one-liners I've ever heard.
Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Earth.
But it uses its telepathic abilities to speak through the main scientist
guy, yeah.
And during that process, the alien before death emits this signal that only bothers the president.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's doing that, the alien reveals their evil plan. Like, and he sees it. He's like, the president comes to after this signal is like fucking with his mind or whatever. And he's like, oh, I've seen their plan. They go to planets and strip their resources and destroy them. They're trying to exterminate us. Let's fucking nuke them, guys. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, since when were they communicating with us too, with the humans? And why would they reveal everything about their plan?
Yeah, that was the part that kind of like lost me. I feel like that was almost definitely added in reshoots or something. Like, you can just imagine the conversation like, all right, Roland Emmerich, we just finished testing the first cut of Independence Day and everyone's super fucking confused. So you have 30 minutes. Bill Pullman's in the area because he's shooting Lost Highway for David Lynch. Also, weird aside for everyone listening, it's super weird that Bill Pullman went from fronting Independence Day to Lost Highway in a year. So, but whatever. Yeah, you have a half an hour. Go reshoot it and like just make it make sense. And it's like, oh shit, I don't really have that many actors. Scientist guy, your brain got hijacked by the alien, and exposition that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
I almost would have preferred if we didn't know what the aliens wanted.
Yeah. What if they
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't
really doesn't
have to want anything.
Yeah.
We don't need them to want anything. They could just be there to fuck shit up.
It's literally the one time I almost wish J.J. Abrams directed something, because he wouldn't have given a fuck. He would have been like, mystery box, and then that's it. What's the secret virus that's going to end the world in Mission Impossible 3? Nobody fucking cares, so we're not even going to tell you. Like, all you know is it's bad. And that's all we needed for these aliens. All we needed to know is they are bad.
Mm-hmm. And you can tell they're bad because they killed millions of people already. And we've already said this, but millions of people died before the Secretary of State was going to say that aliens fucking existed. He was never going to say anything.
Do you think it was a situation for him where things went tits up so fast that he genuinely didn't remember Area 51, right? And then like once shit started going down, he was just like, well, the longer I sit on this, the worse it gets, but it's already pretty bad. So let's see if I can get away with it. Like it's like a kid who like breaks a hole in the drywall, and instead of coming clean to his parents, he like pushes a piece of furniture in front of it or something. Oh, that's just the millions of deaths I could have avoided if I remembered Area 51 was there.
I'm trying to remember if we saw the ships. Like, did we see the alien spaceships that they tried to attack?
I'm pretty sure they attacked after. Like, I'm pretty sure the US military attacked after they started blowing stuff up. They didn't just attack the alien ships right off the bat.
I know they tried. I remember them trying to communicate with the lights.
Yeah.
I like genuinely laughed at that. Like, that was so funny.
I thought they were going to do some Close Encounters shit where it's like, we're just going to play music and hope they understand.
Yeah, right.
Someone get John Cusack in a boombox. It's just John Cusack on top of like a helicopter. I
like,
think the
guys,
boombox playing Peter Gabriel.
The aliens are probably super chill. Let's just go up there and hang. I have a feeling.
Has anyone seen the movie
chill.
Paul before? I think we're fine.
If I've learned anything from American Dad, aliens fucking rule. So if we go up there and just flash some lights at them, let them know that we're chill, we'll be fine.
Nobody has ever gotten mad at having high beams flashed at them. It'll go the exact same way. I swear.
It just opens up the gate. They're like, oh, something's happening.
Kill shot. Turns it sideways. Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe, who knows? All I'm thinking about right now is I really wish we were filming this in person, because one of us could have gotten an alien costume and we could have parked our cars directly in front of each other, and one of us could have flashed our high beams, and the other one in the alien costume gets out of the car with a bat.
And just fucks the car up.
Yeah.
Some GTA shit.
That is some peak GTA shit. Can you tell I've been replaying Vice City?
I can.
my road rage in that game is out of control. But yeah, I do want to point out also the other thing that I really appreciated was, this was a joke that I just found really funny. It's on the news. It's when the military base, like everyone at the military base is watching the news, and the news reporter just goes, and please stop shooting the UFOs. We don't want to create an intergalactic war.
Once again, the LAPD is asking Los Angelinos not to fire their guns at the visitor spacecraft. You may inadvertently trigger an interstellar war.
That was hilarious. It's like, you may inadvertently create an interstellar war. It's like, please don't shoot at the spacecraft. and they were in New York. Like, they showed a lot of clips before then. I'm like, you just know somebody from New York is just like.
Yeah, he definitely was just. It literally is. Oh my God. What's not Simon Pegg? Nick Frost. Nick Frost and Hot Fuzz just screaming and firing his gun into the air. I don't know. Like, there's shit like that. It's pretty funny. And some of these jokes are genuinely good. And then some of them weren't. Some of them were Bill Pullman talking to his wife. And he's talking and he's like, "You've caught me. I'm sleeping next to a beautiful young brunette." And I just remembered like looking from side to side last night because I was like, "Huh? That's your fucking daughter."
I have a confession to make. I'm sleeping next to a beautiful young brunette.
Weird joke to make, weirdo.
Yeah, very strange.
Weird joke to make, Lone Star.
Also, the daughter really didn't sit right with me. I don't know. She
didn't grieve like over her mother hard enough for you.
Yeah, but it was. She didn't really seem necessary either. Just another character that was there.
Well,
a lot of screen time. In their
defense, like Bill Pullman's president is like the quintessential American president. Like he's a little bit of JFK, a little bit of Bill Clinton.
Yeah,
every charismatic president. Nuclear families are a thing. Like, okay, I get it. Fine. I do think it's weird. Actually, now that I said the word nuclear, I do think it's kind of weird that every couple in this movie ends up as like a nuclear, or like every main character ends up in a nuclear family adjacent relationship. Like Bill Pullman's wife died, but he still has a daughter. Will Smith and Vivica Fox get married and they have a son. Jeff Goldblum and his ex-wife, they seemingly get back together. They do get back together, actually. Yeah. Very end of the movie. So like, that's kind of interesting. I don't know. There isn't really much of an insight you can make into that past. Yeah, it was the 90s and nuclear families were still the norm.
You know, you said that you enjoyed Bill Pullman's character, what he was doing, like doing like a JFK kind of thing.
It's because I think Bill Pullman can deliver a hell of a monologue when he wants to. And as stupid and America-centric as his monologue in this movie is, like, it was a good monologue, man.
Yeah,
like,
it was good. Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why the trailer for this episode that I made just uses the speech. You know, although I do think like today is the day we celebrate our Independence Day is like just a bad sentence. Too many days. Like,
What are we, some kind of Independence Day?
Yeah, like actually. But like,
right.
No, but legitimately, this could be the writer in me complaining, but I hate when like certain words get used in a sentence too much. Especially when it's written. If you're talking to somebody, okay, today is the day we celebrate our Independence Day is fine. But this is a movie with a screenplay and already stilted dialogue. So it's like, it's not really, it was just weird. You could have just said, today we celebrate our Independence Day.
I was going to say that. That's what I was couldn't that would have worked fine.
Yeah. To quote Kevin from The Office, why make many word when little word do? Also, I do want to bring out one thing, but right after I very quickly remind people that I ultimately did enjoy the movie. We're just having fun here.
Yeah.
I say this because I know people like this movie, and I'm not the kind of person who likes shitting on things that others enjoy. Like, this show itself is about celebrating movies, and sometimes celebrating movies is just pointing out the ways they're kind of silly, but also awesome, you know?
Yeah. I don't, I may not have, I do think that it didn't hold up as well as I thought that it would.
Yeah.
I'm really just thinking about it being much worse than I remember, which is just nostalgia and, you know, what visiting something that you haven't seen. Yeah. So it's not like it was horrible or anything. I'm not on that, but it just wasn't as good as I thought. I think most people would enjoy it though.
Yeah, no, it's a thing where it's like, I think that there are such things as bad movies, right? There are movies that just like don't really justify their existence or have any proper thing. But most movies, I think, that we call bad movies aren't necessarily bad, but they're just like mediocre to okay movies that you need to watch when you're in the right mood. And like what I was saying earlier was like, I really enjoyed the movie on Tuesday because I had a rough day. I put down my 10-year-old dog. You know what I mean? So I was racked with grief. I felt guilty about being the one who made that call. Like, could you imagine if I had watched something like substantial that day? There's no reality where I would have watched a substantial movie and enjoyed it. So a movie like Independence Day is perfect. Likewise, I've seen people say that Independence Day is like their favorite movie to fold laundry to or like cook to. Because like you can come in and out of the room and the story is so simple and a little slow that you can just kind of like keep up with it. So
yeah,
I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just a movie you watch with your friends on like a Friday night. You know what I mean? I tried to come up with like a fun term that combined the word cerveza and cinema. I couldn't find one. Cervinema, whatever. Like, yeah, it's a cerveza movie. Like, you have a 6-pack with your friends and you eat pizza and you quote the movie and make fun of it while you watch it. And it's a great time and you all remember it. And then you tell your kids all about it in 20 years and they're just like, wait, you hung out with other people? You didn't just download onto the Oculus? You fucking weirdo. But anyway, back to Independence Day. I did want to call something else out that I noticed. Did you ever piece together that the ending to the Avengers is basically the ending to Independence Day?
No.
Okay, hear me out. So first, they're more similar than you'd think because you have a bunch of disparate characters. It's an ensemble movie.
Okay.
People who don't get along and know how to coexist and coalesce with each other come together. They have to set their differences aside due to an alien invasion. And then the big climax is somebody nukes the mothership. I'm just saying, they're very similar.
So the formula works.
Yeah.
It's just the ingredients were wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. The ingredients were there, but I think the cooking, it wasn't cooked well, necessarily. You know what? I can't even say it wasn't cooked well because this was the second highest grossing movie of all time for a minute. Clearly, it did something right.
It's Will Smith for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we actually didn't talk about the impact this movie had on movies, but like, hey, there was me using the same word twice in a sentence. Hypocrite!
Oh, man.
Hypocrite!
Take
Somebody
your own
just
advice.
like unhinges their jaw and you just hear, ah, that hurt.
This is pretty good. This is really good sound.
I used to be able to do it a lot better when I was younger and my vocal cords weren't so like shot by asthma medication. But like we didn't talk about the impact this had on movies, where for a minute there, disaster movies became like the big thing in Hollywood. You know, Twisters and Independence Day both came out in 1996. But after those movies dropped, we got Titanic, which is a disaster movie to many people. Volcano, which speaks for itself. Dante's Peak, which is just like Volcano. They're both about volcanoes. I don't know. I think after Twister came out, everyone just greenlit movies about like natural disasters. Godzilla, Roland Emmerich's Godzilla movie, which was almost kind of foreshadowed in this. If you know where it is, Raekwon, do you know what I'm talking about? Will Smith's kid or whatever, in one scene, he's playing with a King Ghidorah action figure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that Roland Emmerich's next movie was Godzilla.
That's cool.
Yeah. Obviously, like just every Roland Emmerich movie in general, 2012, Independence Day 2 or whatever they call it, Independencer Day.
Independence. They call it ID4.
Resurrection.
Resurgence,
resurrection, whatever, redemption. Don't go with that naming convention for your sequel because people will get it mixed up with a different word that sounds similar.
Independence Day,
the only excuse. No. I'm on a tangent now. The only excuse to this don't call a movie Resurrection rule is if you're making a sequel to like The Passion of the Christ. In which case that's just like kind of clever. But yeah, where were we going with that? Oh, right. Yeah, every movie after Independence Day, like it kicked off like a small wave of disaster movies. Yeah. So it was an influential movie and people did enjoy it. And like some of the special effects stuff were great. Like I really enjoyed the fact that this movie had a lot of miniatures in it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie had some I think it had some of the biggest miniatures ever done at the time, in fact. Like the city destruction thing wasn't all CG. It was a pretty healthy blend of like computer generated stuff, practical effects, and then just good old miniature work. And you can tell, by the way, like you can kind of tell when the miniatures are there because like the way the cars flip and stuff, the weight is off, you know?
Yeah.
But that's just like, I don't know, that's the medium. Nowadays, maybe we're especially trained to see it now because we've seen like physics simulations that border on perfect.
I guess we should give a definitive answer, or you should, about what you feel about the movie. Was this a good movie to you? And is it worth celebrating? I guess we should just go with that, right? Like, is this a movie?
Yeah, we led with that today. Yeah, I do. After all of this, I know you're shocked.
Yeah, I am.
Like I said, I liked the movie. I just don't think it's particularly good.
Yeah.
I think it is worth celebrating because for all the shit we just gave it, it is ultimately like a pretty big achievement in visual effects and stuff. Like this was like kind of the next step after something like Jurassic Park, where Jurassic Park was very deliberate in its use of CGI. Independence Day was like the first blockbuster, or one of the first blockbusters, to really go like, no, we're just going to fucking do it. Like, we're just going to push this. And, you know, it's often been said that George Lucas has always said like, oh, by the mid 90s, I felt like CG got to a point where I could go back to Star Wars and improve on it. And I feel like some of that is because of Independence Day. Like, I think he saw some of Independence Day and he went, well, this is kind of like what I wanted to do back in the day with Star Wars. So let me go back and do it. Because like I said, the influence of Star Wars on this movie is pretty big. And I'm sure George Lucas saw this movie, being George Lucas, you know, the effects guy. And I'm sure he saw this and went, okay, but I can do better.
So you believe that this is worth celebrating? This is like a movie that
I think it's worth celebrating insofar that like it's a fun movie to watch. It's important to the history of movies, whether or not you really like the movie or not. It is the blueprint for the modern blockbuster. And I think it's a good like snapshot of movies in the 90s. I had this thought. I didn't really have time to develop it any further, or else it would just be its own video essay, which for everyone watching and listening, if you want it to be its own video essay, just say as much. But I have this theory that science fiction is a great litmus test of where technology is in movies. And by that, I mean, if you look at like famous sci-fi flicks, you know, you have A Trip to the Moon, which is what, 1903, maybe something like that.
No idea.
That is the fucking Stone Age for movies. George Méliès. And it showed what visual effects were in that time period. But if you jump ahead to Metropolis, right? I don't know what year Metropolis came out, maybe like 27 or whatever. That shows in just 20 years where movies had gone already. The sets are bigger, things are more extravagant, you know, stuff like that. You jump ahead another 30 years, you have like 1953's War of the Worlds. And once again, okay, now we have sound, now we have color, now we have visual effects that are on a higher level than Metropolis's were. Jump ahead another 20 years, Star Wars, Close Encounters, the era of the blockbuster. Independence Day fits in with those movies because it shows what the technology is capable of, what people are using said technology to accomplish, and the stories that interest people at the time. Like, you can learn a lot about history from what movies were popular, which is something one of our professors in college taught, you know? The 90s were a good time to be an American, by and large, compared to these days. Like, you know what I mean? The economy was good. Movies, you look at like all the blockbusters from the era, it was a pretty decent time to be an American. So what is at the forefront of Independence Day? You know, like American exceptionalism, mostly. Just America, like stroking its own ego for 2.5 hours. Yeah.
An example of that with this movie was everywhere around the world is going through this invasion, right? But we figured it out, America. And then everybody else was just waiting for America to figure it out.
It's from the Americans. They want to organize a counteroffensive.
It's about bloody time.
And then they just did it as well. We don't see that. We don't get to see that. But we do see that there are a bunch of alien ships taken out in areas like in like Africa.
We saw in like Africa, Iraq, I think. So, yeah. And it's so funny because like when I started this movie and even before I'd seen the movie, I was always under the impression that this was like blatant American propaganda. Like, oh yeah, the government or the military definitely paid. No, they didn't. The military did not pay for Independence Day, believe it or not. Yeah, they wanted to originally, but two things stopped them from doing it. Number one, the military gets absolutely dicked by the aliens in the first act. Yeah. Number two, the U.S. government did not want to pay for a movie that said that Area 51 was real. Oh shit, that's right. I have the Mac gestures on. If I do different things here, wait, balloons.
If you put the heart up, it'll do hearts too.
No, if I put my thumb like this, it should do another one. There it is. Yeah. But nice. The funny thing is, I actually turned that off too, or I thought I had turned it off.
Yeah, I had an issue with that on my phone too. I thought I turned it off, and then when I was on FaceTime, I saw fucking thumbs up and shit everywhere.
That's so funny. At any rate, I don't know what to do with my hands anymore suddenly. Fuck. But yeah, the U.S. government was like, we're not going to pay for a movie that says Area 51 is real. So this blatantly patriotic, borders on propaganda, it probably is propaganda movie, technically wasn't paid for by the government. But I do want to piggyback off of that because it did get me thinking. We were talking about like how many like different characters there are. And I was kind of explaining like 4-quadrant filmmaking to you. And think about each of our leads in this movie and how they do depict a different type of American, you know? You have Jeff Goldblum, the brilliant, underrealized thinker. You have Will Smith, who is the ambitious fighter pilot who has big dreams and just wants to get married. The Vietnam vet who hasn't been the same since his country let him down and he's looking to redeem himself. Everyone's a trope, and everyone's a distinctly American trope. Also, it's worth mentioning the cleverest thing this movie did was not tell us whether or not the veteran ever actually got abducted by aliens. You notice that?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, did we ever find that out, or is it just the alcohol?
For all we know, it's just the liquor. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where it's like, hey, the whole thing with the shield not making sense. Why would they have abducted him? Why would they have brought him back? And if he stumbled across the aliens himself and that led to him getting abducted, how did he get through the shield? We don't know. We just don't.
It's a good thing that he died in the end.
Oh yeah.
Imagine.
Oh whoa.
Imagine being his kids. Imagine being his kids after he fucking saves the world, and he's gotten like all the honors from the military and stuff. You know, they're giving him some money and all that. They're gonna be on fucking. He's gonna be boozed up every day. Like, oh my God. He's gonna be celebrating every day.
He said today was a bad day to quit drinking.
That was also cheap because
he's
it's like
so American, Raekwon. There is so much red, white, and blue going through his veins that he can just turn off a destructive disease called alcoholism like that.
Mm-hmm. He's flying straight today, guys.
He's flying straight today. Straight as the stars and stripes. Can we just... I really wish when I did that, like the American flag faded in behind me.
My pronouns are USA.
Oh my God. I actually unironically got yelled at by someone with that in his Twitter bio once.
Really?
So, yeah.
Jesus.
Also, can we just, okay, so like we've established this movie as like super patriotic, right? This movie has the biggest fucking boner for America.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, more power to it, whatever. I do want to call out the most patriotic thing in this movie is after Bill Pullman's big speech, when he says our Independence Day, it almost immediately cuts to a reaction shot that shows like dawn breaking over the sky. And what are the colors of dawn breaking over the sky, Raekwon?
I don't know.
It's red, white, and blue.
No, what?
No, in the movie. Because like, think about it. Red, white, and blue. White from the clouds, red from the dawn, and then blue from also the dawn.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I had a feeling, I knew you wanted me to say red, white, and blue, but I was like, is it red, white, and blue? The skies are red, white, and blue.
It is. Those are also the three colors of the sky.
I was honestly going to say orange and blue and white is like, I don't know if there's any red in that.
It technically is orange if you want to be like semantic about it, but like, fuck you. Like, what is orange?
I'm going to be a stickler
red?
About it.
Oh, whatever.
I choose to be a stickler about
Stop
it.
Being a
I
hater.
love my sunset pictures.
Raekwon looks forward to the day the part of his day where he's stuck at a red light and he gets to take a picture of the sunset. And then he posts it on his Snapchat story with asterisk sigh asterisk.
No, it'd be that, and that's not even a joke. Like a legit on my long ass drives, take a quick pic. No caption though if it's posted.
Dude,
if it even
the
gets
only
posted.
thing I miss about commuting from New Jersey to the city is watching the sunset from the side of the train every day. So I get it. This is the only thing I miss. Okay, that and walking through New York in the fall, but like whatever.
It's nice.
It's nice. It is. It's nice. It's the little things, man. But yeah, red, white, and blue. So I do think that's funny. The movie is very blatant propaganda, and the punchline, the garnish that goes on top of it is the exact type of person who would find this movie to be super inspiring. And this is why America's the greatest country in the world is also probably homophobic. And this movie was once again directed by like a super gay German guy.
So for me, I mean, I kind of already said, but I'm a huge Will Smith fan. You know, we love Bad Boys, Men in Black, fucking, and I would throw Independence Day in there. And so I was fully expecting to be gung-ho about this movie, but I'm just not. And not because it was like awful. It just wasn't as good as I remembered. But
okay,
there were things about it that I do believe is worth celebrating. Like, I didn't really consider what you had said before about how important this movie was for blockbusters, which it was. I mean, you know, like you said, some pretty good CG in there, and also just a fun blockbuster. Yeah, like, you know, that's like what most people maybe most blockbusters are, unless they're like especially good or something. But like, I think you would mention like Titanic came out like shortly after this came out, right?
Yeah, like a year, 2 years maybe.
Yeah, the blockbuster disaster movie. But this kind of, I don't know, for some reason I felt like this was in its own category than other, like, just it's not a straight up and down disaster movie because of the things that we had said before, like a lot of American propaganda. This is more like sci-fi than other like disaster movies are, because when I think disaster movie, I do think like Twister,
you know? What's that earthquake movie from the 70s called? Oh, right, Earthquake. I think that's actually what it's called. I'm like 90% sure it's actually called Earthquake. So
those types of movies is what I think about, and this is that, but then it's also like you have Will Smith as your lead in basically like an alien invasion movie, which is it's just fun, like just a fun movie. And who cares if shit doesn't make sense? But that's just how I feel about it now. Like, it is worth celebrating because your expectations shouldn't be super high of a disaster movie, a fun disaster movie about aliens taking over the earth. And it's American propaganda because, of course, we figured it out in the end, and we are the reason that we saved the day, guys.
Like, I think one thing we're kind of circling around is like, if you know what you're signing up for and you decide to watch this movie anyway, you probably will enjoy it, you know? And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, there is such a thing as bad movies, but there's also such a thing as just needing to be in the right headspace for a movie.
Yeah.
And that's it.
You know, this reminds me of our conversation that we have a lot about like superhero TV shows. Like if you're going to watch a show on the CW, like if you're going to watch The Flash or Arrow or something, or even like Titans is on Max now, but like, if you're going to watch those, are you really sitting there like critiquing every little thing about the show? Like, we're watching a CW superhero show, man.
Critiquing, we should point out.
Yes, seriously critiquing.
There is such a thing to be said as like, hey, we're just going to have a little bit of fun enjoying this, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Like, these things were made to be enjoyed more than they were to be like appraised for critical value. So like, if you can find a way to sit with this and enjoy it, cool. If not, you probably don't want to watch it in the first place, right? Like, it probably isn't your bag of whatever the saying is, your bag of monkeys. What a weird saying. Who buys bags of monkeys? It's like, do you go,
never
like,
heard
what
that
is that
before.
even? What is it? I'm definitely misquoting something, but like, do you go to a butcher and go, hey, no, bag of monkeys. Fuck you. I'm sticking to it. You go to the butcher and you're just like, I'd like one bag of monkeys. Would you like a small, medium, or large? The monkeys or the bag?
Do you mean barrel of monkeys?
Yes. But bags
is
are
that
funnier.
What it is?
Yeah, it is. It's not your barrel of monkeys. I do prefer bag of monkeys.
She's a bag of monkeys.
Just hear me out. What would you rather carry, Raekwon? A barrel of monkeys where it's the weight of several monkeys and a heavy wooden barrel? Or a bag of monkeys? It's fun. It's festive. You have to dodge the monkeys because they don't like being in the bag. They're just like fucking throwing punches and jabs at you.
Yeah, we're talking about a trash bag here, or like a reusable grocery bag.
I was imagining like a burlap sack of some sort. To be honest, I was going like straight down middle America, burlap sack you found on the back of a farm from your local monkey distributor.
Right. Yeah, they're not getting out of that bag.
Yeah, they ain't getting out of that bag. Not at all. Not at all. You tied a double knot on the front. They might chew through it, actually.
You know how in cartoons that when there's a fight going on, there's just a cloud of dust and you just see a punch and stars and
it's
like
just
coming
that,
out
but
of
it's
it.
a burlap sack.
Yeah, that's what's going on in that bag.
I really want to make a Bag of Monkeys movie. It's just we open on a shot of a man tending bar, and then a figure walks in. He's wearing a trench coat. He's covered in silhouette. What can I get you, partner? Slides a crisp 100 on the table. Your finest bag of monkeys, please. And then it cuts. You have the dramatic bwah sound, and it cuts to him running down the street at night. He's on the phone. Tabitha, lock the doors. The monkeys got loose.
If you look inside the bag, it's like going into Narnia or the fucking witch's wardrobe.
There's a shot from in the bag looking up as you peek into it, and you fade into it. M. Night Shyamalan's Bag of Monkeys. What if we were the bag all along?
God damn it.
I'd watch it. I think a movie like that would test very well.
With monkeys?
It's a de-escalation program for Planet of the Apes. See? Yeah. There's a happy ending.
It's like...
In all seriousness, I do actually have one thing that I do have glowing praise for about this movie. It's the fact that the movie is so fucking sentimental. And it does have its beats of good filmmaking. For example, when I say sentimental, I just mean it isn't like full of winking at the camera and knowing that it's stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Which is a very like modern trend, which keeps me from enjoying a lot of movies. Like I can enjoy a movie being a bit cringe and a little cheesy, but the second it knows it's being cheesy and it's deliberately saying something because it wants to be cheesy, it loses me. The example for this I have is The Fall Guy. Perfectly fine movie on its own right, but it has the problem of constantly being self-aware and talking to the audience as if they're in on the joke. And that makes it boring, you know? In that movie, an example of that is they keep talking about how the movie they're making within it has third act problems. And ironically, a lot of the criticism The Fall Guy has gotten from myself and others is it has a very weak third act.
That's such a cop-out too.
Right? It would be like at the beginning of this movie if Bill Pullman's like, we'll be fine. They'll probably die from something really stupid.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, like, fuck you. Just have a little more faith in your movie, you know? And being so genuine and sentimental works wonders because that is what a movie is. At its core, it's a very sentimental medium. Quentin Tarantino recently said that like movies are the working man's entertainment, you know? They have a hard day at work and they want to go to the movies and laugh and have fun. And I do think Independence Day fits very well into that descriptor. And there are moments of genuinely inspired filmmaking. Like I texted you last night that the scene where Bill Pullman's wife died was surprisingly good. And it was surprisingly good because after she died, you know, he leaves the room she's in and he sits down with their daughter and every blind in this hospital hallway is like pulled down, except for the one where him and his daughter sit, where we get a strong blue light from outside cast on them. And fuck, that is very cinematic. And it communicates so much to us as an audience. It's kind of saying like, Bill Pullman is racked with grief. He is depressed. He is sad. Blue is the melancholy color, right? And he's racked with all these feelings. He's overpowered, but he's putting a brave face on for his daughter and he's going to push through it. He has to put those feelings behind him, literally, because he has a country to run and a planet to save. And, shit, man, that's just like, that's good filmmaking. I don't think these people who made this movie were incompetent. You don't accidentally do that, you know? But
yeah. I think I texted you that I didn't really like what he was doing with the president character. I don't know. Like at first I wasn't a fan of it. Something about it. And then you said that he was doing like a JFK kind of thing, you know, any charismatic, younger president. But I did text you that night that I was watching it that that hospital scene won me over with him.
You did.
Because we do get, like we mentioned earlier, Goldblum and the president are the only ones that we really get any depth from their characters. And I understood the president more than before in the movie, because even though he has, like, we had already established that he will lie to protect someone's feelings or what have you, and his wife is like, oh, you're a bad liar. But then when he says it in the hospital room that, oh, the doctors, they say you're going to be just fine, she's like, oh, you liar, like, again. And then they have that moment, they cry, and then he, like, you know, goes out after she passes away and talks to his daughter. Just that scene, I understood more about the president than I did all before any of that happened. And then you get the big monologue in the end. So it's like, all right, by the end of the movie, I really enjoyed Bill Pullman is his name, right?
Yeah.
Really enjoyed his performance by the end of the movie, but he definitely had won me over by the end.
I will say that the movie does have a lot of those kinds of beats, but that was like one of the few ones where it worked. Like, it does set up and pay off a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
For example, one of the other ones that really worked was when Jeff Goldblum was telling his dad, like, that he gets airsick. And then when he's about to go off on the alien ship at the end of the movie, his dad gives him a barf bag. He's like, oh yeah, just in case. And that communicates a lot, because that's his father saying, like, good luck, I love you, be safe, I want you to be comfortable, you know? So that was a good one. But the one that's even better is when we find out that Jeff Goldblum's dad, he had, like, stopped praying and he stopped practicing his faith because his wife died at some point. And what does Jeff Goldblum do before he goes off into space? He gives his dad a yarmulke and I don't know, a copy of the Torah. Is that the Torah? I don't know anything about, like,
I think it was the
Jewish
Torah.
faith. Yeah, I'm assuming it's the Torah, or like the book, you know, the Old Testament or whatever. So, you know, the movie does have a lot of those, like, little things, but often they're so minuscule and none of them mean anything. Like, one of the payoff setups and payoffs that Will Smith gets is that we don't light these cigars till the fat lady sings, which is what he said to his friend when they were about to go fight the ship at the beginning of the movie. And it's like, okay, what?
I ain't heard no fat lady.
Forget the fat lady. You're obsessed with the fat lady.
You kind of learn a lot about movies and, like, writing from this stuff. I don't know. In order to do a proper setup and payoff, you need to actually have it mean something. It can't just be like, hey, remember this thing from earlier? It needs to represent something in your story, like a shift in character or a shift in tone.
Well, that's what we had talked about before with the Will Smith's wife being a stripper, and the setup was, I guess the setup really was his friend, his best friend, which I really do want to mention something about him too. But where his best friend is like, you know, I really, really like her, like, and we're like, why are they talking about her like this? And then they reveal that she's a stripper, and then the payoff for that is just the super small moment we get between her and the first lady, where she just reveals that she's an exotic dancer, and then she apologizes to her for it. She's like, don't be, it's good money. And it's like, okay, that what not really necessary. You know, she could have really been anything. That moment wasn't worth setting that up and, like, paying it off. Exactly. Like, it really wasn't.
I think it's one of those things where, like, every character needs a thing. So, like I said earlier, they just gave us, like, different cliches.
Yeah.
But, like, you also don't need to develop every character. And if the character is superfluous to the story, just cut them. Just cut them. Like, and we didn't need to know that Will Smith wanted to be in NASA. That never came back in any meaningful context outside of he got to fly a spaceship once. So cut that detail. I think I'm curious to know how long the first cut of this movie was, because I feel like it's the finished film is like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I think the extended cut that's available is like only 10 minutes longer or something. But I want to know, how long was, like, the earliest draft? Like, if they produced the first draft of this movie, how long would it have been? My guess is like 4 hours. That's just me. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a lot of it kind of leads to nowhere. And it's fine for the type of movie it is, but it does really show at points.
Besides these things leading to nowhere, I think, this speaks to that the writing wasn't very good. Like, I don't really get, this makes sense why I love this movie when I was a kid, but it's just worth watching. I'll say that. Yeah. Like, is it worth celebrating in terms of, disaster movies and just a fun blockbuster? Hell yeah, it's up there. It is that. It does its job of being that.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you've seen Independence Day and you want to talk about your thoughts on the movie, your experience with it, or if you haven't and you want to talk about why you haven't seen it, or if you will after listening to us admittedly drag it a bit, let me know in the comments and feel free to share a recommendation or two for a future episode. Like I just said to Raekwon, our next one is going to be Top Gun Maverick, hopefully in person.
Woo!
Yeah, you're excited.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I rewatched the first Top Gun last week thinking we were doing Maverick today. So I'm very depressed at the thought that, I'm not even depressed. I'm actually psyched because I like Top Gun. I'm just going to watch both of them again and we'll do both movies in the next episode. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. So yeah, bye.
You really think you can fly that thing?
You really think you can do all that bullshit you just said?